to the Masculine Revolution, hosted by Jeremy Brown and myself, Murphy G. This is episode number 59 with Joey Agee.
Doing all right?
59. Sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You doing all right?
Doing great. Doing great.
Good to have you on, Joey.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here. And we got Alan,
Of course.
which
The Magic
my
Man.
favorite story about. I just want to throw this out there because Jeremy, you'll appreciate this. Me and Alan had just met. Maybe hadn't even just met, and we're downstairs working on base camp remodel. Right?
Yeah.
It was just dirt and rock everywhere. And we get up on this scissor lift, and you handed us this cement saw
Yeah.
or something. The blade was 2 feet wide or something.
Cut this.
I mean, and if as we're talking about like mental health and anxiety,
Yeah.
I remember this being one of my more anxious moments in recent history. Just fight or flight. I'm like, and I don't want to give it to Alan because I know he plays bass or whatever, and I'm like, I'm gonna cut my fingers off, so I'm the one holding it, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm cutting into. I don't know what's on the other side of this. I'm like, but please just get me off of this.
Yeah.
I don't know if Alan felt the same way. I
Yeah.
think he did. It was miserable. It was an awful experience.
Yeah. Hang around with me more, man. It's nonstop. It's nonstop, right, Alan?
I never want to do that again.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. So, as always, we have guests on and we say, hey, let's talk about something that is near and dear to your heart. You chose mental health. Which I think is awesome. It's a great topic. It's obviously very hot right now with the stats that are coming out and people are aware of it and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I kind of wanted to start with just getting a baseline of us and you guys, if you don't mind, just without details or having to give specifics on a scale of 1 to 10, where has your mental health been the lowest? Like what number? Where has it been the highest? And where are you at right now?
Yeah. So 0 being like awful.
0 being like you couldn't handle it anymore.
Yep.
And 10 just being top of the world, mountaintop, couldn't get better.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but just 12 weeks ago, I was at a 1. And just had mental breakdown, which is part of what led to me wanting to talk about this. And it's something I've struggled with my whole life. And then I can remember being probably at a 8 or 9, but not as much in recent history. That was when I was younger or, more carefree. There was less stress of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at like a solid 7 right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say, my experience, I'd probably say lowest, maybe a 5.
Yeah.
And then highest, you can't obtain perfection, so I'd probably say, hovering around 8-ish.
Yeah.
Just, I guess that would be more toward like a healthier, side. Right now, I'd probably say 7-ish, 8-ish, in and out, back and forth, pretty
Good.
consistent with just staying mellow,
Yeah.
So now that to say that, that when I say it like that, it sounds like when you give a number like that, like where you're at right now, there's a lot of context to that.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of effort that I put into that I have practiced over probably the last decade of being sure that I kind of maintain, where I'm at. Not to say that to clarify, like even if I'm saying, hey, my mental health is at an 8. That doesn't mean that I'm not experiencing struggles.
Right. Right.
Because I think when you're alive, you're going to experience struggle. So, but it's just coping with the struggles.
Right. I don't think you just end up at an 8, like without having done stuff to maintain that.
Yeah. So a lot of
we'll talk about that.
A lot of proactive activity going on.
Yeah.
On a consistent basis to I've learned that.
Yeah.
You know, it takes effort. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm sure if I slacked off, it would begin to dip. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Murph.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely one's the lowest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there before, several times, and yeah, I mean, I feel like probably about an 8 right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
And it, you know, I thought the idea that talking about that one is it's important. I think just to take stock of yourself and say, where am I at, mental health wise, and have the opportunity to tell somebody, I'm at a 3 right now, and I don't want to give you details. You know, I don't need the details, but just can you even self-reflect and see where you're at? You know, because sometimes you get so wrapped up in it, stuck in it, you can't see the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, right? You just, you know, laser focused on where you're stuck at, right?
Yep.
You know, I think mental health, it gets a I feel like there's either a stigma or it gets a bad rap compared to like physical health, right? You go to and especially as men, it's not something we didn't grow up learning how to handle or deal with. And so physical health, going to the gym sounds like a good thing, man. They're doing the right thing. Cool, they're working on it, man. How's it going? You know, I see progress. But mental health, when you're either asking for help or trying to do things, or not even knowing what to do, just trying to seek out resources or help, you know, you kind of get swept under the rug, or seems like a negative thing. Do y'all think that? Do y'all sense that? Or
Yeah, I feel that. You know, I mean, I think it's changing. I think there's ongoing conversation currently.
yeah,
You know, that's pretty open and vulnerable. That where it's like, hey, this is something that needs attention.
yeah,
But I would say, like growing up, I would say that is shifting. Like in the last maybe 8, 9, 10 years, maybe. You know. There's been more open discussion just socially about mental health. But growing up, you know, through elementary and high school and like, you know, those early 20 years, like I didn't have any mental health conversations with anybody, and neither was it any tactics to, you know, specifically stay in a
Right.
healthy spot being
Yeah.
discussed, you know.
yeah,
So I think culture has kind of shifted to where it's, you know, when you have suicide rates at the place that they are, and you know, obesity levels at the levels that they are, and all these other things, and children, you know, children suicide is all high, you know. So all of a sudden, I think that forces culture to be like, oh, you know, something's going on. So
Yeah.
I think in the most recent years, yeah, growing up, nah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think mental health is so hard because you don't really know what to do with it. You know, as like when I was at my lowest, like there's nothing really anybody can do to help fix it. Whereas like you're in bad physical health, somebody can tell you how to fix that.
yeah,
When like the things I was struggling with, there wasn't something you could say to me,
right,
that was gonna make it better.
right,
There was nothing. I mean, there's nothing like anybody can do really, and that's where it's like, what do we do with this? You know what I mean? It's like, because, I mean, I know, like, for myself, at one point, you know, I guess I'd been diagnosed like with depression or whatever, and so at the time I was abusing drugs, and then I went to see a doctor, and then he tried to describe some whatever the meds are for it.
yeah. Well, there's 1,000.
Yeah. So anyway, I tried that, and it seemed like it made it worse. So then I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like at that point, it's like it's just a struggle for myself. You know what I'm saying? Because there wasn't anything. It wasn't anything that somebody did to me. It wasn't something you could solve with a conversation. and it wasn't like it was every day. It would come in waves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, so for me, it's like, I don't want to say it necessarily a stigma as much as people just don't know what to do with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because we're all, I feel like, especially when people love you, they want to help you solve a problem.
Yeah.
And especially when they see it being detrimental to your life, or, you know what I'm saying, and they want to help. But then there's just really nothing you can
Yeah.
do for it, because it's like, I mean, that was my experience. There was nothing that anybody could do. You couldn't care me to be,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? You couldn't love
Yeah.
me to be better. It was just one of them things,
Right.
you know. And looking back on it, I think maybe the drug use had something to do with it.
Gosh, yeah. Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
so
if I had to be honest with you, it's like, you know,
Yeah, it's putting you in a spot.
yeah.
there's so many facets of it. And I was diagnosed with ADHD at an early age, and at that time, and to my parents' credit, there was not this kind of knowledge out there that there is today about mental health and non-typical brains. So anybody that has autism or OCD or ADHD that just doesn't process things in the way that's considered, normal. And so they were taking me to psychiatrists or whatever, and in a sense, what it was communicating to me is that something was wrong with me that needed fixing, right? And again, they didn't know any better, so they're sitting on them. They were trying to do the best they could with what they had. So start taking medication for that at a young age. And as I got older, not understanding how to deal with stress and things. And I guess one of the things I struggled with, that looking back on my childhood now, and probably a little bit of I think this is typical with ADHD folks, but some OCD tendencies where when on a small scale, like I don't like it when something I had planned changes, even if it's like my plan for the day or where we were going to eat. If all of a sudden that gets uprooted, it's like I need a second to process it. And then, the little bit of fight or flight comes in just over something little. But then when something big happens, something major happens, so I went through a divorce, job, career change, stuff like that. That's on a grand scale, like something major in your life changing. And so now all of a sudden, all this plan I thought I had for the rest of my life went away. And I realized that that threw me into kind of, that started a mental spiral, not a slow kind of getting out of control, but just, I didn't know how to process that. But what I came to realize is you're ultimately, I think, grieving the loss of this big chunk of your life, right? Who you thought you were going to be, this life you thought you were going to have. And so so this brings on the normal things that come with grief, anger and depression. And so you're feeling these things and you don't know necessarily where they're coming from. And medication is one way to go, whether it's prescribed medication or self-medication, right? And I've been through both of those. So I started taking something. I think I took Prozac and some other antidepressant, anxiety meds, and then resorted to drinking or smoking or whatever else. And then what you're doing in that case is just trying to help yourself not feel. You're running away from those feelings, right? Exactly. And so I think something I've learned in the very recent past is allowing myself to feel these not negative emotions, but sadness, anger in a healthy way, not try to mask it or run from it. Because all that does is it's still there. It's going to be waiting on you when you decide to stop, sure. Right? And it just builds up. So on the medication side, I got all kinds of stuff I could talk about. So y'all jump in if you have
No,
anything.
you got it.
On the medication side, one thing, this is just like a tool to share. I want to share for anybody that's listening and dealing with trying to take medication. Because one of the challenges is there's thousands of different medications. You go to a different doctor, they're going to prescribe a different one because it's the one that they like to go with. They all take 6 to 8 weeks to start having an effect. And you're like, I'm so impatient. I'm in this situation because I ain't got time for this,
Right.
And so it's miserable. It's miserable to do that. However, about 5 years ago, I came across this thing called GeneSight, Gene site, SIGHT. It's basically like a 23andMe or Ancestry.com, like cheek swab DNA test, but it's for telling you what, of all the mental health drugs that are out there, which ones are more likely to work well for you and weed out the ones that, based off your genetic makeup, your gene markers, because they've done all these studies with everybody else that has different gene markers and what works for them and what doesn't. And I was able to kind of cut through a lot of crap and find some medications that actually worked well for me and didn't make me feel numb, because that was the biggest thing that I hated, was then I just couldn't feel anything at all. I wasn't feeling happy. I wasn't feeling sad. I was just numb. I was just there, just present, but not present, And it was actually dealing with that spun me out of control, because I would forget to take the med for a day, or whatever happened, and then another day would go by and I'm like, man, I can kind of starting to feel like a person again. I hate my medication making me feel like that. Then 5 or 6, 7 days goes by, and all of a sudden your body doesn't know how to deal with all the feelings you're feeling, all that you've numbed, right? So this test, your doctor does it, sends it off. I think it's like $300. I can't remember if insurance pays for it, but it comes back and it just lists all the medications and puts them in 3 categories: a green, a yellow, and a red. And it basically is saying the ones in the red category, based on other people that have your same genetic makeup, the side effects are either really extreme, like you feel them, or it has these other, a lot to do with the side effects, or your body just doesn't metabolize it well, and so it's not going to work. And so it really helps fine-tune the medications that are likely going to work for you. And that's helped a ton. I was able to change meds, get on something that makes me feel like a human again, but also kind of brings the highs down a little bit and the lows up a little bit, so I'm just not such a roller coaster of emotions, right? Which has been super helpful. And another thing is exercise. So we were talking about, is that a gym out in?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a jiu-jitsu deal.
Yeah. So I know you into the gym. I never went to the gym, and then 12 weeks ago had a mental breakdown. I was at a 1, and got through that and started doing a lot of things to help my mental health. Stop self-medicating. I didn't stop drinking then, slowed down, and I wasn't like drunk all the time, whatever, but I would always go have a drink to escape just a bad day or whatever. But started going to the gym, and I had this goal to go 3 times a week for 12 weeks. And yesterday was my 3rd time this week on the 12th week.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Nice.
and
Congrats.
thanks. And it's crazy. It's just crazy how much that has impacted my emotional state and mental well-being. And I go to a therapist, so I was talking to my therapist about it. We were talking about how like having worked out now, like I don't even want to have a drink, because I don't like the feeling of being outside of my head now. Whereas for 43 years I was trying to not be in my head, You know, I didn't want to be in the same place as myself, basically. And he said, and we talked about it, he's like, you got to create a mental space in your head that you want to be in, that's welcoming, to the point where you don't want to be out of it, you know. And I think that's a lot of what mental health struggles are, running away from that place in our head that's really us.
Yeah.
Where you feel those things and you process those emotions and deal with stuff. But now I want to be there. I don't want to do anything that gets me outside of that.
Right.
Yeah, I would say hearing that part right there, that was probably the biggest key for me, because I would say right after high school, like all my friends left for college and stuff, and then I don't know what it was, but it was like 20 to 25 was just terrible for me.
Yeah.
And just maybe it was big changes like that, trying to figure out who it was going to be. But I would say, like, man, and it's tough because I was using a lot of drugs, so I think, and I know that sounds funny, but what I'm saying is that had a lot to do with it, from the escaping point and just not thinking clearly, and then things in my life going bad, and it's just like, at that point, it was like things just kept stacking on itself, and self-medicating was a huge deal. And then I would say, going to jail and having that clarity time, and I just knew I wanted to be something different, and so I think I look like, when I look back on that time, there was a lot of things that were like changing in my life. I was trying to figure out, what I was gonna do, and I obviously, like I said, the drugs definitely had something to do with it. But coming out of that, and like they said, like what you just said about finding that spot that you want to be in, and it's like that right there has changed everything for me, of like knowing who I want to be, knowing what's like creating like this, I guess, this projection in my head of who I need to be and who I want to be, to stay away from that dark place. So I guess in a way I'm still running from something, but I'm running towards a good thing,
Yeah.
And then when I like, reading scripture, it just kind of helped, I guess, calm things in my mind. I think I'm probably naturally just like an anxious person, as far as just overthinking and so I think just allowing scripture to speak to me, and not, I know it doesn't fix everything, but for me, that was a huge piece, was as I read more and got more knowledge and kind of dove in on the spiritual side, it really just, like, some of the things I was struggling with haven't even been a issue for me, and I was like a happy dude in school. Like I wasn't always like that. And so it's like, when I look back at that, the drug use picked up, and just life was happening. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on between 19, 20, 25, And so I think it was just like, I don't know, moving out of that, I don't think I've been close to even a 3 or 4 or anything like that. And like, probably since I went to jail, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, after coming out of that, it's just, and I can't explain it exactly. I wouldn't say I don't have tough days. I have tough days, but it's just different. It's just not, I haven't been low like that. You know what I mean? So for me, it was like, and it always comes back to picturing who I want to be over like where I was at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, remembering that sting of how low that felt.
Yep.
Like, I never want to be to that place. So it's like, I don't even like feeding into things that go put me there.
Right.
Mentally, as far as like beating myself up, or like, it was like I had to find a new motto or something for my life to bring me back. You know what I'm saying?
There's a great little clip of an interview on Howard Stern with Ben Affleck, and they're talking about he struggled with, he was an alcoholic for a long time.
Yeah.
And he said the only cure for addiction is suffering. He's like, it's not until you've suffered enough that you're actually going to stop, which sounds a lot like that. Like, this was so bad. And it takes a minute to you got to step far enough away from it.
Yeah.
Which is the hard part, I think, is getting far enough away from that you can actually look objectively from the outside, and see, you don't know how you got there. You may not even know how it got away from there, but you don't want to go back, and that's, you're retreating into that mental space that's safe to be safe to be vulnerable or honest with, man, this is a struggle, or this sucked. Why did I go there? But yeah, and I think it's one of the, and like I said, there's no one fix. There's no one way to do it, and I think at the same time it's different for everybody else.
Absolutely.
What got you there for you isn't what gets Jeremy to a 7 every day, or gets me to a 7 every day. But for me, I've had to attack it from like a bunch of angles. I go to therapy once a week. I think, I love this mental health series that Foundation does every year. And one of the guys on the panel is actually the therapist I go to. And it took a while to find somebody that I gelled with, or just I felt like I was getting the progress I wanted to see. It's not a one size fits all. I know you're in the music. I am too. I think finding one thing that has helped me is I'll have these I feel like I've got like these repressed emotions from just years and years and years of stuffing them down, and I've got a playlist called Feels that just will help me feel those things and get those emotions out. And so like there's sometimes where I just feel like, man, I'm not sad, but for some reason I just feel like I need to cry or just get something, just get this out. Almost like working out, you sweat and you're just getting toxins out, right? So I'll throw a couple just the saddest songs on, right? And just let them flow. But that it's almost like a cleansing in your body to get those out, get those feelings out, and just to help build it like exercises your ability to feel those things that you're just not used to because you've been trying to avoid them for so long.
Yep.
And time with God's a huge one too. What I always had a hard time like doing like quiet times. I think the typical thing people think of is like waking up in the morning and having coffee, opening the Bible, doing a Bible study, or reading whatever. And my mind is just with the ADHD. I'm just always thinking. I'm thinking faster than I can read when I'm reading the Bible. I don't know what to open up and read, and so that just never worked, man. Or doing a Bible study. Again, I just didn't like to read stuff, and so one thing I found recently, and this just probably didn't work for everybody, but it revolutionized my spending time with God, is I actually hand copy the Bible just as I have time throughout the day. I don't do it every day. I don't wake up in the morning and do it. It's just, and sometimes I do it when I'm thinking thoughts like, oh, I want to go have a beer or something, or I'm just thinking I need to escape from this day. I'm like, let me sit down and just write. And so I've copied so far like Matthew, Hebrews, James. I was determined to get Genesis finished before this podcast, but I got like 4 chapters left.
Yeah.
And I bounce back and forth to Proverbs because Genesis is a lot. Is a lot. Somebody's need to escape from that. But that has, just, and I guess throwing that out there just for anybody that just struggles with finding time or finding what works. It's really more just to encourage, find something that works for you. It doesn't have to be a normal, just quiet time or whatever, but be consistent in learning about God and His Word and what He has for you. And it's writing it down for me slows my mind down, helps me focus without losing focus and thinking about other stuff. But also the pace of it's cool because, you know, we read the Bible, we're reading stuff that happened over years and years and years in a matter of minutes, right? And so I know it's not the same, like, over the same amount of time, but slowing it down, you kind of feel the pace of things a little bit more, and people are on a journey going something, you know, Paul's traveling or whatever, and it's not just, you're not just reading, he went here, 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 here. You're like, you spend time writing and reading about where he spent time and the things he did. So you just pick up on a lot of things that you wouldn't normally pick up on, I think. And what was awesome is, and it was cool, Clint kind of shared this in these last two messages, talking about the genealogy of Jesus and the women that are placed in the genealogy. And I remember I started with Matthew, and so the first two chapters of Matthew is literally just names. Yeah. Here's the genealogy. I mean, it was so odd. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna like doing this, because it's just writing, and it was just all these crazy names, like weird names. You know, you can't spell. So I'm just looking back and forth. But I picked up on that Tamar was listed, and I'm like, why is a woman listed in this or whatever? So I was able to go back and see, and so I kind of had figured that out on my own about a year ago when I started doing it, and you know, I just otherwise wouldn't have. I just would have read through it, you know. So that's helped a ton for me.
Yeah, I think one thing too. I mean, I'm gonna say this. Well, let me phrase it like this. I feel like we are complicated. Humans are complicated, right? And so there isn't an easy button with anything, whether, you know, anything applicable or good in life. Like, there's not something you can just be like, put your finger on it and then it's done, and then you never have to deal with it again. Like, that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So coming to the realization that perfection is unattainable, you know, is reality. Second piece is, I think what's helped me is recognizing that, like, hey, I'm big on recognizing principles. And so what I mean by principles are truths that can't be debated, as far as, like, nobody's sitting there saying, oh, you know, that water right there, and if I drink the water, it hydrates me. You know, that's the truth. Mm-hmm. Like, if I drink water, I'm hydrated, you know. So highlighting principles that are truths and don't change regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the situations, regardless of the elements playing into it, the principle remains the same. If you can highlight identify just a few principles that are huge in life, that keep you from having less higher highs and less lower lows. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, like, hey, you know, I got to do these things, and if I do these things, then I don't have the high highs, lows, lows. No, it's more of a mental space, you know, of just recognizing, you know. And so, like for example, like gratitude, you know, that's it's an incredible tool to use, to where it's like, when you're having a bad day, if you take a step back and you're like, hey, let's look at other people's bad days that I am aware of. Like, you can go to Scripture and you read some experiences with some people in Scripture, and the things that they, you know, take the Israelites in Egypt. You know, they were slaves for 400 years, building whatever the Egyptians wanted them to do, right? Living on, like, stipends and giving food what they you know, here's what you're going to eat, you know, kind of thing. And
there's generations in there that were only that.
That's it.
That's all they saw in their life.
That's it. And I have my mind can't even wrap around that experience, because God allowed me to be born in America in a time where technology's at our fingertips. You know, I get hot, I go over to the wall and I hit a button, You know,
You can do that from your phone. You don't
yeah,
have
I
to
do
go
it
over
on
the
my phone.
wall.
Right, exactly. You know, and I'm hot. I'm gonna cool it down. You know, all these things. You know, and so then it's like, well, you know, what am I getting upset with? And the majority of the time, what's at the root of the frustration is whatever is happening is indifferent than what I desire.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you really just are truthful, like why am I frustrated? You know, whatever the circumstance may be is a negative or what you perceive as a negative to you yourself in the moment. You know, and so then if you start looking at those behaviors, those patterns of behaviors to where you begin to react to like what you define as negative to you may not even be that big of a negative, but to you it's a negative, you know, and you recognize that, then you can begin to kind of go, okay, I need to start putting into action a different thought process that will then lead to different real actions, you know, but it starts here, you know, and what comes out to my mind is, you know, Romans 12:2, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be renewed by the I messed that up.
Be
But
transformed by the renewing.
transformed by the renewing of your mind so that you can test and know what God's will is. So transformation, renewing, these words are equal time. You know, so you have to fail.
Yeah.
Failure is the best teacher, which is why, like Murphy, you're sharing, you know, hey, what was the best time that gave me the clarity in your experience? Jail, you know? And would you define jail as a failure?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
society would
Yeah.
say, you know, if you go to jail, you failed.
Yeah.
You know, and so failure all of a sudden becomes this incredible launch. You know, this launching board to where all of a sudden your perception and your perspective changed
For sure.
because of the failure, because you were experiencing failure. But then you had a decision to make, which is why you say, hey, people don't know what to do with it necessarily, because at the end of the day, it's up to you.
Yeah.
I can tell you, you know, which is why I'm such a big proponent of indirect leadership, because humanity, look, we've got a problem. We have sinned. You know, it is inherited. It is a curse that we've inherited because at a point in history, humanity chose opposition than God, right? So we decided to leave perfection. You know, that's what we believe. You know, some people don't believe that. That's okay, but still, look at the condition of the world.
Yeah.
That's enough evidence for me. You know, so if you recognize that sin is a problem, there has to be a solution. But can I obtain the solution? You know, and so then you start looking at it from just an objective perspective. Like, can I be perfect and reverse this condition in my heart? Well, the answer is no. You know, that's why Jesus did what he did. You know, he is the answer. So what does that do to my heart? You know, if I'm still living in a cursed spot and Jesus is the answer, what does that do? Well, he's covered the separation between me and God the Father for eternity. He's made that, he's built that bridge so that I can have that, because without it I'm unholy. I'm death. When God looks at me without Jesus, it's death. You know, because I am not anything like him. Perfection is nowhere in there. And so Jesus covers that up. But then the responsibility piece is you got to go do what Jesus has called us to do, which is the renewing of the mind, which leads to transformation, right? And transformation is striving after what God originally created us to be, which is in unity with him, right? The beautiful thing is, it's not our responsibility to be perfect. You know, Jesus was perfect. So that the bridge is built. We're going to fail because we're within the constraints of the brokenness, right? Until we're not. But regardless, we're there. But it's our responsibility to strive after it, which is a lifetime. Like, you never stop, you know, from the day you're born to the day you die. it's a journey of pursuing and learning and striving and failing and learning some more and sharing your failures, sharing what you're learning, to others, like we're doing right now, having these conversations, where it's like but you've got to do, like that. You don't get out of not doing. You've got to do. Action is required, for transformation. It's not a something magical that just like, okay, I don't ever have to do anything else. I'm just done,
Yeah.
It never ends. And so that's where it recircles back to me, to the principles, and the I say it probably too much, but like on here where just with anybody in conversation, I probably talk about it too much, but I think it's relatable. So let me say it, so like, take physical activity. We talk about physical activity. If you eat right and you move, you're going to have results. Like if it's unavoidable. If you're eating clean and you're moving, you're going to change. Well, that's the same thing with your mind. Same thing with your spirit. If the renewing piece is, how often are you saturating yourself with the principles that God and Jesus has taught us that don't make sense to the rest of the world, but then when you do it over and over and over, and you mess up and you miss the opportunity, and you miss a chance to say something to somebody when you hear that little voice in your head saying, say something, and you're like, no, that's going to be awkward. And then time passes and you're like, should have said it. You know what I mean? But then you get better, like that recognition of that practice where all of a sudden you hear the voice and you remember last time you didn't say anything and you should have said something, and then you regretted it. So I'm going to just say it. You know what I mean? And so it's like this, it's this ongoing practicing thing that you have to get tuned up on and be disciplined with. One of the fruit of the spirits that's listed in the New Testament is self-discipline. And I'm a huge proponent that, like, look, that's one of the most important ones, because without it, like, you got to make a choice. You have to make a choice as an individual that you're tired of doing things that are leading you into a spot that is no good. And you got to make a choice to say, I'm going to not choose to do that. Now, that's the level of difficulty is different for everybody with that.
Yeah. Because
it depends on how deep they are into the patterns of negativity or in opposition of God that they are, Yeah. And so it's huge. It's a huge thing to just come, if you're truthful with yourself, which is awesome, Joey, because this is what you're sitting here saying. Like, you were at a 1 12 weeks ago, right? And now you've come to the realization of, like, I'm being truthful with myself, and that sucked, and I don't want to do that again. And so what do I need to do? And so now what you're doing is you're identifying principles that work for you, and you're applying them on a consistent basis. The battle will be not right now. The battle will not be right now. The battle will be in a year from now. Are you still consistently doing what you recognize as something that you need to be doing? And here's the thing, man. You get tired.
Mm-hmm.
You get tired of just staying consistent. Consistency is hard.
Yeah.
Really hard, because there's days that show up and you're like, I really don't want to do this, or I really don't want to think like this. Like, these things are happening and I just want to just be a little turd and whine and moan and complain,
Yeah.
And I find myself in that position, at times, often as well, and you got a choice to make. Like, are you going to choose to shut it up and just say, no, I'm not participating, or are you going to lean into it and run that mouth or run those thoughts in your head just on repeat,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to choose, and that's the difficulty part about mental health.
Yeah.
When a lot to unpack there. What I've realized about myself that helped me become more consistent, at least in these, short 12 weeks, but I'm more consistent with things that I would never have been consistent with previously. So what I had to realize is that my kind of OCD nature is to plan out exactly what this consistency is going to look like to the T, and it's going to be every day. It's going to be for 60 minutes, and it's going to look like this. And then the second it doesn't, which is usually like the third day I get sick and don't go to the gym, right? It's like, well, I just screwed up and it won't be perfect, right? And so I had to come to realize that I just had to take down all these barriers to perfect, barriers to consistency, like having to be perfect or having this plan. I have to just suck it up and don't make the plan so rigid, right? So it's just going to the gym 3 times a week at least, right? It doesn't have to be this, I'm not tracking every exercise or my weight or measurements. I didn't take pictures beforehand. I'm not, comparing to that. It's just literally go 3 times a week. It's that simple, right? I don't overcomplicate it because that's how I typically am. I'll overcomplicate everything. I'll over-research everything.
Yeah.
And
then that itself turns into a stressor.
That's work, and and that's a stressor, right? And then I got to go buy all the stuff to do it the right way, and yada yada yada. Yeah. With copying the Bible, it was I don't write the headings. I'm not writing the verse number. I don't even write in paragraph form until I don't start a new paragraph until it's a new chapter, and then otherwise I just write. If I mess up a word, I scratch it. I keep going, and that's it. So where I could be like, well, I'm gonna get a red pen for the red letters and what
Yeah, you could go all out.
All this crap that would get in the way of just doing it. So you have to figure out for yourself kind of how you're limiting your self-limiting behaviors, I guess, or how you're getting in your own way. And from a failure standpoint, another great thing, talk about the gym. Like the whole point of growing in the gym is pushing yourself to failure. You don't grow your muscles if you don't do exercises that literally physically hurt your muscle, right? Tear your muscles so they can grow back stronger. And so it is working through those failures to actually grow.
Yeah. I think that's what attracts me so much to training jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. It is a little snapshot of life, in this art of, it's a form of martial arts, and so, you're literally battling another human being, to the point of like, obviously you could either break something or you could kill the other person, but obviously there's an understanding of, hey, I'm going to tap and you're going to let go, but regardless, like you show up day one, and you're giving this, hey, day one, here's your white belt, and you go against, somebody who's got more experience and all that, and they make you feel like a child. Like it's ingrained in every man where it's like, if you ask a guy like, hey, if something went down on the street, could you kind of throw some bows and, hold your own a little bit, and most guys are like, either I'm going to run or, I can hold my own, it's, those are the two reactions, and so
you say it like a caveman.
Yeah. But when you get on the mat, here we go, you're going to get tested, but point is like, you can be 5 years deep and be at a particular level, and in jiu-jitsu, you got belts that identify like, hey, this is your skill level. You can jump up against somebody who's been doing it for 20 years and they got a different color belt on than you, and you're pretty good at whatever level you're at, but then you jump up against that 20 years and all of a sudden it's like, I don't know anything, and they just school you, you know? And so point is like, is that person any different from me? No. In fact, I might even be in like better shape, quicker, more cardio, all that, but still they can beat me. Why? Experience and time on the mat. That's what makes the difference. And so it's the same thing in life. How long have you been consistently putting an effort in maintaining mental health? you know. And somebody who's been intentional about it for 20 years, like when you talk to them and you struggle with it, you know, you're going to know. You're going to be like, man, they've got clarity, you know.
Yeah.
And I want that, you know. And so it's like, well, you can have it, you know, but it requires work and it requires time.
Yeah.
You know?
I generally refer to that as at bats. You need as many at bats as you can give yourself. And so I play in a band, and in some band forums, there people are like, you know, hey, anybody have tips for stage fright or how to get around stage fright? And it's literally get up on stage more, as often as you can. Same with jiu-jitsu or being in the gym or, you know, writing songs, whatever. You get better the more you do. You're not just going to sit there and think on it, and then all of a sudden put out a banger.
Right.
You know, you've got to put the reps in.
Yeah, and that's exactly like we can look at all these different areas of life, and there's a principle in there. You know, that's the common denominator in all those different areas. Like my experience and the way that I relate, I can use the example of jiu-jitsu. You take music. You know, you've been playing and practicing music for X amount of years, you know, so are you better than you were when you first picked up a guitar? Like, yeah, well, why? You know, the principle is you've put the time in.
Yeah.
Doing it. Like, not just like watching YouTube videos on how to play.
Exactly.
You've actually played, you know. You've actually done it, you know. And so that's where society, I mean, you can pick all kinds of stuff and we can go down all kind of rabbit trails, but that's why it's so strange in our culture, because, like, you know, we're in this time where people like, oh, well, I want to be good at this, and they just want to be good at it, like, well, I'll study up on some YouTube and stuff like that, but then actually applying it and putting the consistency piece in is not a part of the equation. And it's like, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That is outside of the principle that you cannot change, you know. It's like, you know, they say a professional, you know, you got to be a true professional, you got to have 10,000 hours doing whatever that task may be, you know. And so it's like that. I don't know the exact data on, like, what does that equal as far as
that's 5 years of full-time work.
Okay.
I did that math.
Okay, so 5 years of full-time, like, define full-time. Like,
40 hours a week. 40 hours a week over the years, 2,048 hours.
Yeah.
I just know that from, we calculate labor costs.
Okay. So take that, for example, and let's say this. Like, here's the thing is like that qualifies what you would say, like, you're going to get pretty good at whatever that task may be in 5 years of consistently doing 40 hours a week. But then you take somebody who's done it for 10, and there's another level of whatever the first 5 is. So it never stops. You know, you just get more refined, and you recognize, you know, you just recognize more applications of whatever you're doing in what you're doing it to be more efficient. You know, there's a ton of things I could say, you know, as far as, like, you know, you're improving it, you know. And so I think that, like, when I think about, like, the topic of mental health, and somebody says, okay, well, you know, where do you start? Well, we've already hit on a couple of those items, you know, as far as tools goes. But the biggest thing is like, yeah, you recognize those things that you need to do, but where the true focus is get consistent with it. You know, it's easy to talk about it now, but let's talk about it. Let's revisit this 10 years from now, and let's see where you're at. And either you'll fall off and won't do it, or you're a pro at it, like an excellent pro at it. You know, one of the two. You know, and so you got to make a decision on what you want to do, but you got to be intentional with it if you want to do it. You know, you can't just fly by the seat of your pants and be like, oh, I'm going to tackle this. You know,
well, and talking about folks that have put in the next 10,000 hours, or doing jiu-jitsu with folks that are a belt ahead of you, like you, and it was harder earlier on because less people were talking about mental health and being open about their struggles. And that's one of the reasons I want to do this and encourage people to be open about it and talk about it. Because my experience the past 12 weeks and even before that, talking to anybody about mental health, seldom do I talk to somebody that doesn't also battle some sort of mental health struggle or also take a medication or whatever. But they just don't talk about it because the conversation doesn't come up. But you need, like, if you feel like you're the only one and you don't talk about it, then you don't have the other jiu-jitsu guys with higher belts to show you how to get through it, teach you, or just model it, right? Pick up on things that other people do, or ask, like, can you mentor me in mental health? Like, give me something, help me figure out something that works for me.
Yeah, man. And I think that's, you're hitting on the head, just tink on community and relationship. Here's the thing. In our society today, like, you got to recognize we are literally at war. We're not war against this. This is just a piece of plastic with a bunch of things.
He's holding up a phone for those listening.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. It's just a thing. We're at war with the things that we cannot see, the principalities and the forces that are in opposition to God Himself. And if you recognize that we're at war, then how can you be offensive instead of defensive? Defensive meaning more in a reactive position. Offensive being in a proactive position. So how can we do that? And relationships, man, our society is pulling us away from each other. We think we're connected, because we have all this social media, and we're hey, this is what I'm eating for lunch. You know what I mean? And
I'm breathing in. Yeah. I'm breathing out.
Yeah, and so it's like, I'm connected. Well, who have you talked to? Who do you have that's in your life that's close friend that you trust, that you can call or text or meet for lunch or whatever it may be, and say, look, I'm having a bad week, And I'm not saying it's just about to all fall apart, but I just need to vent a little bit, and I need some help and some advice. You know?
Or otherwise I'm gonna go have a drink. Or
exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna cope in my negative way. And so but here's the thing: our timelines and the pace at which we live, which is intentional. Like, we have not arrived at living at this pace just by chance. It is a pure 100% attack on humanity to be where we don't have time for each other. Mm-hmm. Period. We don't have time. We'll sit here and we'll have these little, on the surface conversation, like, how's your week? Oh, it's great.
Yeah, let me move on.
Yeah, and you're not really even engaging. Like, you're just going through the motion, you know what I mean, of the conversation. But we've got to be plugged in, which, that's one reason I think, like, look, I am 100% a believer that people need, if you're at a certain spot and you need some counseling, go to counseling. Mm-hmm. But one reason I believe counseling is getting so much of a buzz talk is because we don't have relationships with each other. Yeah. We're not talking. We're not relating. We're not learning. Mm-hmm. We're just running and really just filling our times up with stuff that it's not even that it's bad things. Like, it's just a lot of good things, but not really isolated to really focus on, what you're good at, you know what I mean? And so what does it produce? It produces disconnection and isolation. Isolation, no good for the human. We are what are animals? Herd animals.
Herd, yeah.
Yeah. We are that. We are herd people, Mm-hmm. We live, we're built to live in community. We're built to support and build each other up. That's how we were designed. We were not designed to be out here in left field completely by ourselves, just fending off like all the troubles of the world, We're meant to be together, and so you got to find a source of community so that you get some support. And that is like, that's my number one struggle personally right now, because everybody's running like with their head cut off, mm-hmm. And you try to do stuff with people, and you try to schedule things. You try to schedule lunches. You try to schedule dinners. You try to do these things, and it's like, I'm busy. And it's like, well, all right, well, you're busy, but you're sacrificing what God wants, how God wants us to live.
Yeah.
For what? For what? you know? And so that's where I get pretty fired up about it because, and I'm not fired up like at anyone. I'm fired up at it. I see it for what it is. It is a 100% attack on humanity.
Yeah.
And it continues to get worse. And what we've got to do is people of God following Jesus that we have to step up and recognize it for what it is and then do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Say no to the system. Do not subscribe to running around with your head cut off.
Yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
Don't subscribe to it. It doesn't lead to anything that is worth like how Jesus wants us to live. It doesn't fit in his model.
And I think a lot of that is so I think running around and doing stuff and keeping ourselves busy is a coping mechanism we don't realize is keeping us from stopping and taking stock of where we're at, right? We don't want to stop and slow down and think about what I got going on in my life. If I can keep myself busy, if I can keep myself busy with helping other people do things, that ticks a box that makes me feel like I'm doing good stuff. When really you're just pushing down stuff you probably need to address with other people and bring up with community. And even and on another like practical, tangible level, I know you said we're not at war with like the phones and stuff, but I think like and this is a tool that's been incredibly impactful as I got off Facebook 12 weeks ago, whatever. And before I'd gone through periods where I would just get on and off, but like now I don't even want to be, like, I don't want to be on it. I don't want to watch the news. I don't want to scroll stuff because what that does as you're scrolling, it releases these endorphins and it gives quick hits of dopamine to your brain that I think also keeping yourself busy doing things like still give like that reward of like, I got that done. Your brain is flooded with this kind of false dopamine, artificial manufactured dopamine.
You haven't done anything
Right.
to earn the dopamine.
Right. And there's a your brain's there's a book called Dopamine Nation, and it talks about the same spot in your brain processes pleasure and pain, right? And it's trying to keep a balance where you go to the gym and work out, you create this pain, this tension or whatever, and it's going to replenish dopamine to match that, and you're going to get those good like natural endorphins that your body actually created. So it's almost like eating fake foods versus real food. But if we find this easy dopamine hit by scrolling our phone or keeping ourselves busy doing things for other people or whatever, we're getting this flood of dopamine, and we don't get the pain that goes with that or that it took to get that. And so now all of a sudden our tolerance for that pain has gone way down. And when something happens and we stop for a second and we start to feel like anxious about like something, it's too much because we can't handle it. And so I think that's, again, why it's important to actually stop and process these feelings and deal with them and, have the at-bats to get through them so that as they happen, because they will happen, you're better prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have a question. Well, go ahead, Murph. You got something?
Go ahead. You ask.
So, for someone who, how would you answer, Joey? For someone who doesn't necessarily struggle with low lows or high highs, and they're kind of more even keeled, right? And so when this mental health topic comes up, that person has a tendency to just kind of be like, I don't know what's wrong with people. You know what I mean?
Man,
how do you encourage that person to be able to relate with somebody who does struggle with it?
Yeah. So, I remember growing up thinking, I I just didn't even understand, or I was just naive to the fact that there's brain chemicals that make you act a certain way and make different people act different way. It's just like I was that person. I was like, I don't understand what people struggle with or why they do. But if you're someone that, we want to be, I think the tendency is we want to be a fixer and we want to fix something when somebody brings us a problem. We don't even stop to ask what they need. If they just come and say, unload something on you, or ask you to come, hey man, can we meet for lunch or whatever, and they just kind of through conversation or sharing stuff that they're going through, your immediate thing is, I got to fix this. I got to be a fixer and be a help and, help them win this or whatever. But having struggled with mental health and been afraid at times to bring that up to people, one, the person struggling doesn't want to feel judged. They especially don't want to feel like they're broke and need fixing, right? You got to kind of process it thinking, well, how are they receiving this? And you don't think about that when you're just coming in trying to. You think, oh man, they're gonna love my idea, or what I tell them to go do, and then I'm gonna not help them do it, but I'm gonna check on them in 3 weeks, and they're gonna be like, I didn't do that. I tried and whatever. But man, I think the 95% of the time, all somebody who's struggling wants you to do is sit with them in that. I think Simon Sinek, I think is his name. He's an author, and I see his reels will pop up on the algorithm. But he says, oftentimes we feel like when someone brings us something, like we're the guy up on the high horse that's like, let me fix this for you, when really what you need to do is get off the horse and sit in the shit with whatever they're going through. And they just need you to be there with them and not feel alone. And then stay with them as they kind of navigate this. That's what you commit to. You don't commit to having the answer.
Yeah. That's good. What's your thoughts with that, Murph?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Like I said, I think our natural reaction is to want to fix it, but, it's not something somebody on the outside can really do. For me personally, I went to rehab before I wound up going to jail. But and the rehab taught me a lot about addiction, which is, to be honest with you, before I went to rehab, I didn't think I had a problem.
Sure.
That's
how it goes.
Right. And then, as I'm in rehab hearing about addiction, I'm like, oh, this is actually me. And then I wasn't done with doing drugs after that, but I'm just saying, it's like it taught me about what was going on, and I don't think it like necessarily lined up until I had like for real just hit a brick wall. But what I'm trying to get at is I really don't even like talking about my past, and the reason for that is because I don't want that to be a part of my identity of who I am moving forward, and so. A lot of times with people that I talk to that come from similar situations that are trying to do better, they still want to identify as someone who's broken and, oh, this is who I am. And I like, my number one thing is like, you got to think different if you want different. And so I try not to like, I've had plenty of people who, why don't you tell your story? There's nothing to tell there, like that. Other than like I made bad decisions, those bad decisions put me in bad thought processes. I did bad things that, gave me bad results, and there's nothing good about that period, Mm-hmm. And although addiction is a part of it, and my mentality and choices I made, at the end of the day, I had to think and see myself as different than that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. A lot of times we like to make things our identity when it should be like accountability is saying, hey, I did this. I recognize that for me, it was thinking negatively about myself, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then I start reading books about my worth and like what I should be as a man, or hearing success stories of other people, and I gravitate towards that, right? Like it didn't just it didn't like I just went to jail, I got out, and I was fixed. I did a lot of work. I mean, this was 8 years ago, and I've done a lot of work and continue to do work to separate myself from that, from where I was at. Do I still have bad days? Of course. But I don't, when I start having bad days, I don't like feed into that. Does that make sense? Like I don't just like you said, I don't want to drink anymore, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is I had a lot of things I was struggling with at that time, but I also made bad decisions of coping in negative ways.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like life was just getting hard.
Yeah.
And that's a fact of it. And a lot of people like struggle with like life being hard, but at the end of the day, it just is.
Yeah.
No matter if you're a 1 or an 8 or a 9, life is still hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't change because I'm in a good headspace.
That's it.
And that's like when I talk to people who, struggle, went through the same things I did, and they're trying to get their life together. And they say I'm married, got kids, and everything's, it looks all great and all. There's a lot of work that went in there. I had to stare myself in the face and call out all those things.
Yeah.
Whether it be, hey, I'm using depression as a cop-out right now. Hey, you're doing something shitty and you're saying it's because you're depressed. And that's what I mean is like, I can't identify with that anymore.
Yeah.
I have to see myself as somebody different. Hey, man, I don't do this anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't the same. And so what I feel like a lot of people get in these spots and they want sympathy and you should empathize and sit with people and their stuff. But at the same time, it's like, we can't stay here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just for me personally, and like I understand that, I guess when you start to get into like schizophrenia and stuff, I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. What I'm just saying is a lot of people identify with a certain thing, but it's really an excuse.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is if you really got mental health stuff, just like when I really recognized what I was doing to myself, I had to make changes. And at the end of the day, it's like, that's what we have to do is, if nobody's told you yet, like pick yourself up, man.
Yeah.
You can do it. And I'm not saying that as in like, I'm somebody who went through it. And I can tell you, I've been at the point of suicide. I've wrecked my car doing drugs, knowing that this is way more than I should be doing right now. Was it a conscious thing? Not necessarily, but I knew I've been doing drugs a long time. I knew what was the right amount. You know what I'm saying? So all I'm saying is, from somebody who's been at the one for real, I'm telling you, you can get to that point and not have to return back that low if you do the work.
So you started out saying you didn't want to tell your story.
I'm not trying to.
No, I know.
I'm just saying it's like,
listen, you say, I don't want to tell my story because I don't identify with that, or that wasn't me. But then you just got to the end and you just shared exactly and this is just an encouragement to you. You shared exactly what your story is, and you don't have to lead with, hey, I'm Murphy G and I went to jail and I did drugs.
Right.
Like I've got a relative that comes in on the holidays or whatever, and she doesn't do this anymore, but for a while there, she was like, hey, my name's so-and-so, and I went to federal prison. Like, literally, it was just so awkward to her and just so nerve-wracking that everybody was going to be thinking that, even though if they didn't know it, she just got it right out there. And she doesn't do it anymore. So it's like, you don't have to lead with that, but your story is that you're a warrior and got through it, and you got yourself to a point where you can see it from the outside for what it is, right? The way our brains work, we go to things like we're depressed or self-destructive thoughts or self-medicating things because that's the easy path. And so you think about like a big cornfield and you got to get through it. You're going to walk this way and you get a path through it. That's the way you're going to take every time, right? And you have to get away from that and let that grow up and build a new path to this mental place you want to go to. That now the easiest path is to not drink. It's to go to the gym and work it out, or to talk to somebody and get help. So I think I think sharing the way you shared it is perfect, right? Like that's your story, and that's great. And it doesn't connect you with who you were however long ago. Like I was a sucky guitar player. I'm an okay guitar player now. I was a sucky guitar player at one point, and I can share that and share the at bats it took me to get from there to here. That was still me at some point. It's not me now,
Right.
but it was me, right? And you can't disconnect yourself from it so much that I think there's danger there, where now when the stressors come up, you feel like you're going to flip a switch and go back to that. You know, it really is like a spectrum and a journey that we're on.
Yeah.
Yep. It was good.
For sure. Yeah, I just get fired up about it because it's
Yeah.
like I don't feel like I'm anything special. You know what I mean? It's like I just wanted something different. You
You're
know
not.
what I mean?
I'm not.
Right,
Jeremy's
exactly.
not. You know, but in the sense of community and what people need when they struggle with mental health is they need what's more helpful. Somebody that doesn't struggle with it, just sit down with them and hold them, listen to them, be there with them. But man, and that's why I want to talk about this and get more people talking about it, because then you have more people you can go to, or people that can inspire you, or people that can tell you how they got from point A to point B, to show one, you can do it, because I did it.
Right.
And from real life, it was not easy, or this is what made it easier. Like I said, I had to tear down these kind of personal constructs that just get in the way of stuff. You have to learn about yourself, not only what you're great at, but what you're not great at, so that you can kind of flip that around. Which is to the community point, like I'll talk about it all day, every chance I get. One, it's therapeutic to me, but if it just helps somebody else be more open about it and crack open that part of their brain and their life that they're avoiding, so that they can kind of build that path back to it that's healthy. And now I'm addicted to that place in my brain I want to go to.
Yeah.
To the point that I don't want to be out of my mind for any reason, even a drink after work socially, right? I don't want to be out of that place, and it feels great, you know.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I encourage you, you know, just keep these things fresh, you know, and set goals, you know, constantly, so that consistency is obtained,
Yep.
you know. But be okay with failure too. You know, you slip up, you have a bad day, you have a bad week, you have a bad month. It's all right that tomorrow's a new day, or today's a new day when you wake up. Like, I know what it takes. I've identified it. It's not complicated, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
I got to put the work in.
Yep.
For sure. One day at a time.
That's it.
Well, yeah, y'all, I guess that was closing thoughts right there. Y'all feel good
Yeah,
about that?
that's my closing thoughts.
Okay. Well, yeah, man, hope people listening enjoy this. Hope you get something out of it. As always, y'all can reach out to us at Masculine Revolution on Facebook, or leave a comment here in the YouTube video. Appreciate you coming on, Joey.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Happy to. I love it.
Yeah, man. It's
Love
a
you
good
guys.
conversation,
Yeah.
man, for sure. Until next time.
Join the family.
Ba-dum-tsh.
Yes, sir.